Boston Celtics cruise to another home win, 20 in a row to start the season. Jrue Holiday was hot. So were all of the Celtics in the first half. Jordan Walsh made his debut. It's all right now on a Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you covered every single day, plus bonus podcasts on the weekends with a free, fresh podcast drop directly to your device. If you're a new subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're an everydayer with me Monday through Friday, thank you so much for being a regular listener, making the show part of your daily routine. Get into that YouTube page, hop into the comment section. Let me know what you think. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. Today I'm talking about a Boston Celtics 117-98 win over the San Antonio Spurs. Later on, I'll get into Jordan Walsh and the fun vibes, the third quarter cruise control, the bench energy, all of the specifics of the guys here in this win. Today's show brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. By the way, before I get into the show, you got to stick around. Tomorrow's show, Drew Carter, the heir to the Mike Gorman throne, currently doing the road play-by-play for the Celtics, soon to be doing all the play-by-play for the Boston Celtics. And he's going to join the show tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed to get that show. I think it's going to be a fun one. All right. Celtics get this win, 117-98. And, you know, on the surface, it's just a regular old January win. They come out strong, a big win over a bad team, aside from Victor Wembanyama and, you know, a couple of decent players that they have out there, Devin Vassell, who can be really good. That's Keldon Johnson, but Keldon Johnson didn't play well. He has potential. No one else on this roster feels like they're going to be around for when Victor Wembanyama is ready to take this team to a championship. But Wemby was good. Wemby was fun for a little while anyway. 27 points, 10 of 19 shooting, but only 26 and a half minutes. They're really being careful with him. So the Celtics in the first quarter, they kind of went back and forth. And then once Wembanyama sat, they started to get a little bit of separation. And then in the second quarter, they outscored the Spurs 40-20. They shot at one point during this game 70% from three. At one point, it was a 70% shooting night from three. And it eventually fell apart as they got into the third and fourth quarters. But it felt like they were on their way to a historically good, great shooting night, and that's what propelled them to eventually a 30-point lead, and that's kind of how they kind of cruised to this win. So early on, it was just 3-point barrage. Second quarter, it was just everything was going. They were 8 of 9 from three in the second quarter. The Spurs were 1 of 9 from three. So right there, you want the difference in how did the Boston Celtics outscore the Spurs by 20 in the second quarter? Well, they went 24 points from three, and the Spurs went 3 points from three. 21-point difference. There's all of it. In fact, the Celtics were outscored by 1 in every other facet of the second quarter outside of the 3-point shooting. So that's how they built up a 25-point halftime lead. Once it got to 30, they let off the gas, and they just said, we got it. And they weren't wrong. They had it. And yeah, it got down to 12? And the bench came in and did what they do. Nemaesh Queta, Payton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, all of those guys, O'Shea Brissett, did their job. And that's the recipe for a comfortable win. Ended up being a 19-point win over the Spurs. So Jaylen Brown, I think, was the kind of overall star of the game. 21 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Jrue Holiday, 22 points, 6 of 7 shooting from 3. He is absolutely on fire. 6 of 7 in this game, 10 for his last 13. He's now shooting 42% on the season, and his biggest shooting performances have come with somebody missing. And after the game, he was asked about, does your mentality change? He said, no, not really. The flow is a little bit different. I had to be a little bit more aggressive, but for the most part, I think I just tried to find my spots to be aggressive. Yeah, with Porzingis out, with Derek White out, I thought the Celtics would have trouble finding an offensive flow. They did not have any trouble finding that, and that's because Jaylen Brown was really playing well and moving the ball. Tatum obviously had a pretty good first half, and Holiday stepped in and just was unconscious. And, after the last game, Joe Mazzulla was talking about how, Holiday has he still is trying to figure stuff out. And Holiday, to his credit, he's like, no, I feel pretty good. I feel good. He's just living in the space that's created by all these other great players, Tatum and Brown and everybody else. And he's finding his spots. He's finding some good spots, not just the 3-point shooting, but the attacking. He's doing a great job all the way around. So Holiday was one of the stars of the game. Jaylen Brown, shooting 50% overall, had a really, really nice game, played 31, almost 31 and a half minutes, not a ton, 31 and a half minutes for Jayson Tatum. Those guys were, Tatum, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, just 2 turnovers. Jaylen Brown had 3. One of them was a ridiculous behind the back attempt to Payton Pritchard, which he said, Payton runs too fast. So I mistimed it. It's really funny that that's the excuse that he's giving for blowing that behind the back pass. Maybe he shouldn't have thrown that behind the back pass, but to be honest, that was plays like that. You kind of have to let them go, right? There might be people, and I don't know, I haven't checked, but there might be people around the internet, around the socials who are like, pissed off that Jaylen is attempting those passes. It's not like he does it all the time. I think every once in a while, you got to let a guy kind of have a little bit of fun. I know this kind of flies in the face of your normal kind of basketball feel for coaching, but this is the NBA and this isn't college. If this was college, yeah, the coach would blast the player. The player would fall in line because it's a coach's league in college. And maybe even overseas, coaches have a lot more power overseas. But in the NBA, with an 82-game schedule and this being a January 17th game, you got to let the guys kind of let loose every once in a while. And if Jaylen commits one turnover by trying to get a little too fancy when the Celtics were building a 25-point lead, you kind of have to just say, it's Jaylen being Jaylen. And he doesn't go for that stuff all the time. So every once in a while, you get a little fancy with it. So what? Later on, he threw a between the legs pass to O'Shea Brissett that connected. He pointed to the bench and was like, see, I got you. Because he said Derek White was giving him a bunch of crap, saying like, I don't know about that pass. So, give him that moment. Give him in the bench that moment. And I'll talk about the fun vibes because this is part of it. This is part of it's January. We talk about this a lot, and I know I kind of hammer that point a lot, but we have to make sure that we are on that same page with these guys. We have to get into their headspace, and January kind of sucks. And I didn't even realize this going into the game. They had a long delay with their flight, trying to get back from Toronto with problems with the engine and trying to de-ice the plane and customs and all kinds of things that really made it a travel nightmare getting back from Toronto. So that's why they ended up canceling a shoot around, and they're kind of like regrouping. This stretch, it's let them have their moments, and you're gonna have to weather some of these storms. You're gonna have to weather some of these lulls. I'll talk about all of that stuff, and I'll talk about the bench, the guys who came off the bench that really gave the Celtics the energy that they needed to build this lead and kind of get that third quarter mess under control. That's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy, made fun. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And why is it so easy? Why is it so fun? If you haven't tried Prize Picks, you're missing out on the projections, you and the projections. It's not you versus me. It's not you versus some experts. They set the projections. Jayson Tatum points, Jaylen Brown points. You pick more or less than whatever number they set. If you get all of your picks right, you can pick 2 to 6 players. You get 6 right, you can get 25 times your money. You don't even have to get all 6 right to win something, and you can have some fun with it. Football, I know football with the playoffs, there might be a couple of opportunities here for you to kind of mix and get into their combo league and get touchdown receptions, and in addition to somebody's assists. Go for it. Have fun. And don't worry about it if anybody gets hurt, because they have a reboot policy, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets hurt. If that player gets hurt in the first, doesn't come back in the second, rebooted. It's the only platform with this injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. It's very simple. Deposit whatever you got up to $100. They'll match it at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. Today's show also brought to you by LinkedIn. It's the start of a new year, and every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? Brad Stevens has that question too. He doesn't have the option of going to LinkedIn Jobs and getting himself a big wing or a backup big, but LinkedIn Jobs knows what you need, and they know that success depends on the team that you surround yourself with. So they've created these job tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Another thing Brad Stevens doesn't have the luxury of. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates, and so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That's why small businesses like yours rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats that you might not have time or resources to hire. So thankfully, at LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's got everything covered, all the big national stories covered over there, streaming every day, all day. Forget about those stupid, contrived, fake argument shows. Go get real, meaningful sports conversation at Locked On Sports Today on the YouTube page. It's fun. Go subscribe. So the Celtics came out, built a 25-point lead, shoot the lights out. Third quarter comes around, and they kind of stink. Well, let's go back to the second quarter and the energy that these guys brought that helped save the Celtics in the third quarter, because guys like Payton Pritchard, Nemish Queta, and Sam Hauser played great on both ends. And I think those guys are the unsung heroes in all of this. Pritchard, not only, 12 points, 4 assists, a steal, no turnovers for Pritchard, plus 17. Not the team high, because Sam Hauser was a team high plus 18 in 20 minutes. And he was only 1 of 4 from 3. Sam Hauser is stepping up. Payton Pritchard, look, I will say that Pritchard has really kind of stepped into this role. He's kind of grown in this role. He's better. He's played better than I thought he could reach. I thought this type of performance might be a little bit more occasional for him, and he's just become a much more regular part of this rotation. He's obviously a regular part of this rotation, and it's impressive because a lot of the things that I still wonder in playoff situations, if he's going to be as playable as he is now, I still think that's a question for the playoffs, but he hasn't shown any of that stuff. And it kind of eases my mind. I haven't really spent any time thinking right now, or leading up to the trade deadline, which is less than a month away, thinking, okay, they need to get somebody to make up for Payton Pritchard because he can't play in the playoffs. Or I haven't thought, oh, they need to play Delano Banton more to get him ready for the playoffs because he's going to have to get some run because Payton Pritchard is too small. I haven't had that thought, right? I just popped into my head now as I was thinking of things that I haven't thought of, which kind of just broke my brain. Pritchard has been really, really good, especially lately. He's just comfortable. He's really able to play both ends of the floor effectively. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But right now, he is a huge part of this rotation, has been playing great. Sam Hauser, I think the fact that he is contributing so much without his shooting, that speaks volumes about how much he's progressed over the past couple of seasons. There's one possession where it ended with Neemias Queta blocking a shot. He had two. It was in the first half. Don't want to say second quarter, maybe late first quarter, where the whole possession is whoever it was, I forget off the top of my head, was going right at Sam Hauser. And Hauser kept his position, kept his discipline, and that player just tried everything he could to attack Hauser. And by the time he spun and thought, okay, I finally got past him, Queta comes over and rejects him. It was a fantastic defensive play, starting in almost entirely Sam Hauser. And then Queta was just like, oh yeah, I got your back just in case. And he was fantastic in that role. He only played 12 minutes and he hasn't played a ton lately, but when he gets the opportunities and in these right matchups, he can be helpful. 8 rebounds for him, 4 offensive rebounds. He's going to get a ton of offensive rebounds because a lot of it ends up being his own putbacks, but he's around. He's got a nose for the ball. He does foul a lot. He had 5 fouls in this game, but Queta was a plus. Hauser was a plus, hitting just 1 3-pointer, which was not happening last year. Pritchard was a plus. It was their energy in that second quarter that helped build this huge lead because they really pushed the pace. And then after a third quarter, which Joe Mazzulla said, I saw that third quarter coming because they shot like 70% leading into that. It bled into the beginning of the third quarter. So there's a point there at the beginning of the third quarter where they pushed that 5-point lead out to 30. The Celtics were shooting 70% from 3. It looked like a wrap, and the Celtics took their foot off the gas for sure. 100% took their foot off the gas. That, Mazzulla kind of after the game was like, oh, I don't know about that. But like, yes, you definitely did take your foot off the gas. And because they did, the lead dropped to about 12. And once again, Wembanyama left the game, and these bench guys came in, and they were the boost. They were the boost that got the Celtics past that, over that hump, got the lead back up over 20 and in a comfortable spot. So I'm not really overly worried about the third quarter because and Joe is right about this. The shooting did have to correct itself. They were never going to shoot 70% from 3 for a whole game. Now, it overcorrected because they shot 26% in the second half. In the third quarter, They shot 2 of 7, which is 28.5%. And the Spurs still shot 2 of 5, so they only hit 2, but they were 12 of 20 overall. So that's 10 of 15 from 2. Too much at the rim for the Spurs for my liking. That's the one thing if I had to point to one thing I really didn't like, too much at the rim for the Spurs. But third quarter, the lull, the shooting corrected itself. Fine. That's going to happen. It was very obvious that Tatum and Brown were like, we're cool with this. We're good. They were walking the ball up the floor. They were just getting the ball over half court at like the 17-second mark of the shot clock. So right as they were getting to the 8-second call, that ball was coming over the half court. It was very much like a fourth quarter, that last year fourth quarter kind of feel, like milk the clock, milk the lead. And it cost them. They lost that third quarter by 9, but they had a little bit of a run at the end to kind of get themselves back on track. And like I said, those guys off the bench, when you're missing Derek White, when you're missing Kristaps Porzingis, you have a couple of guys that get elevated, like Luke Cornett and Al Horford, and the rest of the guys on the bench have to step up. And those guys are going to come play with energy, because this is, O'Shea Brissett doesn't have a lot of time to get some run. Kata doesn't always get much run. Pritchard and Hauser are always kind of fighting for their minutes a little bit. So those guys are always going to come with some energy. So it was great to see them kind of bail the Celtics out. Second half, Tatum and Brown were not that great. They were great in the first half, but in the second half, they were kind of, going through the motions. But that's okay. That's how it goes. And I'm not too worried about it, because they did pull out of it. And that's the key. That's the whole key. And part of why they pull out of it, like we said yesterday, Tom and I talked about the fun vibes. I'm glad we talked about it yesterday, because it was a big key to this. And I'll talk about the Celtics having some fun and how that's getting them through these doldrums. We'll do it in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. The Game Time app is going to get you those last-minute tickets with no hassle, no worries, because you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to the next big event. It doesn't matter. Sports, sure, obviously we're a sports podcast. Music, comedy, theater events, it's all there on the Game Time app with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. So they've got the tickets right up to the last minute, even after an hour after some of these events start. So if you want last minute tickets, you can get them. They've got zone deals. So you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats. Those get you big time savings. They got the Game Time guarantee, which means if you find tickets in the same section or row for less somewhere else, Game Time credits you for 110% of the difference. You can see the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. The prices are all in prices, so you know what you're paying up front. You're not surprised by all these crazy fees at the end, thinking you're getting a deal and you're not. Everything is involved. Everything is all wrapped up into one price. So 2 taps, you get yourself the tickets. You know where you're sitting. You know what you're paying. Boom, done. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON, LOCKED, locked on, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. They're covering the league, and I'm there on Wednesdays covering the league with Jake Madison. So 2 podcasts for me on Wednesdays, and it's fun. It's a fun podcast that covers the whole NBA, the big stories, the fun stories. So go check it out wherever you found this. I talked about the fun earlier. Jaylen Brown having some fun out on the floor. After the game, Luke Cornett with a great post-game interview where he starts out with Abby, and O'Shea Brissett is kind of there, like giving him the look, and Jayson Tatum comes over and gets in on like the team picture, and Jrue Holiday kind of like horns in on it. Gets like, so it's 4 of them. Cornett talks about how the vibes are really great around the locker room. These guys are having a good old time. This is This is the beauty of this team. And we talked about it yesterday with Tom. We love talking about vibes. We want to make sure that these guys are enjoying themselves. After the game, Jaylen said this team, this locker room ranks right up there with some of the best. And it's a great thing to hear when he says things like, it's been a pleasure this season. We all get along. It's a good atmosphere. We got guys that come into work every day trying to improve and get better, and all of that stuff you don't take for granted. So they're out there. They're doing the work. This is where good vibes come from. And I'm going to get serious about the good vibes for a second because this is important. How do guys have fun? Winning, obviously, number one, right? And they're winning more than any other team in the league. They haven't lost that home yet. Halfway through the season, they haven't lost that home yet. So that helps. But it also helps when you win practices. It also helps when you get in there. I will say one of the biggest things that tears a locker room apart, it's not the game performance. It's the practice performance. When guys go in and they cheat the practice, they don't go through a full lift. They don't go through the full practice. They sit out practices. They skip practices. They skip meetings. They think they're better than the team. They think they're bigger than the team. And no, some guys are old and they need to skip certain things, and everybody's on board with that. But some guys are just superstars and they cheat practices a little bit. And the Celtics don't do that. The Celtics don't cheat practices. They don't cheat team meetings. They don't cheat film sessions. Everyone is accountable in a film session. No one is above the rest of the team in a film session. This is all important stuff. How does an entire locker room feel like they can be on the same page? As much as these guys are all NBA players and a lot of them have similar stories, they don't all have the same story. They don't all have the same personality. They all are different people with different backgrounds and different upbringings and different family situations and different worldviews, different politics or appetites for politics, different interests off the floor. Each locker room is different, and you can develop cliques in these locker rooms, but the Celtics have avoided that. Not just because they're good. And there is, as Tom Westerholm said yesterday, there's a little chicken and egg kind of thing going on where it's like, does the fact that they're winning help the vibes? Do the vibes help the fact that they're winning? It's all tough to kind of suss out, like, where does it all start? What's the exact order? But putting in the work together, going through the hard times together, going through the tough part of the schedule together, and still kind of finding your way to find the fun in the game, that stuff is incredibly important. And that's why you get to this point. Here's Gregg Popovich. Here's his quote before the game when he was asked about something similar here. And he says, the guys all have to buy into it. I mean, all have to buy into it or it doesn't work. The love of being able to love your teammates, feeling responsible to them, like I owe you and you owe me. And that's why I have to block out. That's why I have to bust my ass in transition D. That's why I have to build you up if I think you need it. All of those things have to happen over time with your group or you really don't get there. And it's difficult. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. I love that quote from Gregg Popovich. I love that quote from Gregg Popovich because he knows to win a championship, you all have to be on board. You all have to be bought in, not just to what the coach is telling you, but to each other. You have to want to love your teammates. And it's hard to love your teammates all the time, especially if some of your teammates aren't putting in the hard work. The one teammate that I can think of in my time, who I won't name, that I had the biggest problem with was a guy who found his way to sit out practices and found excuses to not do the same work the rest of us were doing. And none of us liked him because of that. And he was a nice enough person in general, not somebody who was otherwise inclined to be a bad person, just didn't find it within him to do all of the work that was necessary to succeed. And it starts to drive some resentment. Like, who the hell is he to not run when we're all running? Who the hell is he to be skipping this practice when, we got guys puking, in trash barrels because we're working so hard? Well, who the hell are you? And that fosters resentment. That type of stuff is where locker rooms break apart, or one way locker rooms break apart. So when we talk about the good vibes, we talk about how much these guys love playing for one another, with one another, that's where it all starts. And that's why it's not just, hey, look at these guys having fun. And it's not just, all right, let's look the other way on Jaylen Brown making a stupid pass. All right, fine. It's because all the other stuff is there, and you got to let these guys blow off some steam. Every once in a while, you got to have a food fight and to just blow off some steam. Every once in a while, you got to have a field trip. Every once in a while, you got to let the guys have their moments, and they will reward you with the hard work. So all of this is great. It's not just the happiness. It's the fact that they've worked this point and they have fostered this kind of attitude. I love it. I know you love to see it. So it's fun. And it's one way to get past talking about a blowout win over a very bad San Antonio Spurs team that has Victor Wembanyama and not much else. So until he gets good and, gets great or elite and gets good elite teammates, the Celtics have a chance to run off a little bit of a run here. So we'll see. We're at the halfway point. We'll talk about the halfway point tomorrow with Drew Carter, play-by-play guy for the Boston Celtics, new TV voice of the Boston Celtics. We'll get his thoughts on the Celtics, obviously, get a little bit of how the gig is going, how it's like being Scal's favorite nephew, and all that stuff. That's all tomorrow on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So make sure you are subscribed to the show. Make sure you get this show dropped directly to your device by subscribing. Get onto that YouTube page. Let me know what you're thinking in the comment section. And all of you everydayers, I'd love it if you share the podcast right now. Spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.